Okay. Good morning, Leo. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Juhasz. I'm Professor of Media Studies at Pitzer College, and this is our last class of online feminist spaces held at Pitzer College this fall. The assignment that my students are going to be presenting live to whoever's watching on the internet and in person to those of us in this beautiful room. And thank you to, can we just say BESHT? Thank you to BESHT for letting us have this amazing space and the possibility to project live. Is a kind of fun assignment. The students each have been inhabiting an online space that they chose for the semester. They've been asked to think about what makes that space a feminist space and what that makes that space an anti-racist space. So in other words, what makes it a political space or not, and through a variety of assignments. And their final assignment was to figure out how to connect their online space to an offline space, to the real world, and in so doing, improve its potential for the work of feminism and the work of anti-racism, and to present to us in a 10-minute presentation how they satisfied that assignment and what they learned about their space and the internet more generally, and feminism more generally, by doing the project. And we're going to have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 presentations of 10 minutes apiece with a break. And I look forward to hearing what you all did. So Alejandra Rishton is first.
Thank you. For this project, I joined Iraq Veterans Against the War. And all semester, I've been asking, is Iraq Veterans Against the War feminist and anti-racist? So for my final project, I wanted to switch the tables. I took my daughters to the Arlington West Memorial in Santa Monica. And then I made this video, which I'm going to post back on Iraq Veterans Against the War to complete my X reality loop. What's your name?
Adele.
Where are you going today?
To a beach.
What happens at this beach?
People put up classes for all the soldiers who died in the war.
What do you think about that? How's the audio?
Hey, there goes one of those petticoat soldiers now.
Yeah. My sister wants to join the wax. What do you think of that?
She's
Yeah,
crazy.
let me see if I can get it up. Is that up?
That's down. Now do it also here. Is there a control? Let's check if there's
Sorry.
It looks good. There's something that is here, right? So there's something that's seeing the live stream, it looks good. Yeah.
There's knobs down here, but I have no idea.
Yeah, that's what it is. Okay. I think. Okay. Why don't you play your video? It's going to be one of these.
The devil's a woman want to be a soldier for?
Just a waste of time. This is a man's war. What sort of jobs can they do?
At an Army Air Force base in Arizona, women mechanics learn to service the big bombers, receive expert instruction in every phase of aircraft maintenance. A plane named in their honor gets a thorough going over by the air wax, as they're called. From motor to tail assembly, the girls make ready.
I did it. Okay, so the only thing. Okay, try that.
Thank you.
Start from the beginning.
What's your name?
Adele.
Where are you going today?
To a beach.
What happens at this beach?
People put up classes for all the soldiers who died.
What do you think about that?
Hey, there goes one of those petticoat soldiers now.
Yeah. My sister wants to join the wax. What do you think of that?
Huh. She's crazy. What the devil's a woman want to be a soldier?
This is a man's war. What sort of jobs can they do?
At an Army Air Force base in Arizona, women mechanics learn to service the big bombers, receive expert instruction in every phase of aircraft maintenance. A plane named in their honor gets a thorough going over by the air wax, as they're called. From motor to tail assembly, the girls make ready the giant battleships of the air. 65,000 strong, they relieve men for combat duty.
Peace to the world, peace to my country, my love, peace to your dreams, peace to your children, underneath the whispering trees, where our sons and daughters are free. In the beauty we'll receive.
The tide of death keeps rising. This is the Mother and Child Hospital in Basra.
صباح الخير. أنا دكتور ألماني. أنا أشوف هذا. What is the age?
It's 4 years old. 1 year old.
1 year old. Yes. Prognosis?
The prognosis is very bad. 80% die, mortality 80%. As we know, the DU may be transmitted by the wind and everything is contaminated now. The air, the soil, the food is contaminated by this material.
Thank you. Thank you much.
It's skin disease. It's fish-like mouth and eyes. They will die.
Sind alles schlechte Prognosen hier. Die Kinder leben alle nicht mehr lange. Furchtbare Situation. Das bedrückt mich alles so, wenn ich das sehe. Furchtbar, furchtbar, furchtbar.
Thousands of WACs volunteer for overseas duty, eager to serve in the actual theater of operations, the goal toward which they've worked and trained. Wherever the American armies will go, WACs may follow. Women have proven their definite value in England, in North Africa, in Algiers, in New Caledonia, India, and Egypt. Every WAC making the war shorter by a month, a week, a day, a minute. Yes, wherever the American armies will go, WACs may follow. To Berlin and Tokyo, too. Ladies and gentlemen, General Marshall.
The
The Women's Army Corps is an integral part of the Army of the United States, and its members, who are soldiers in every sense of the word, perform a full military part in this war. There are hundreds of important Army jobs which women can perform as effectively as men. In fact, we find that they can do some of these jobs much better than the men. As more and more American soldiers engage the enemy in combat, women must replace them at overseas bases and at posts in this country. In view of the urgency of the situation, enlistment in the military service should take precedence, in my opinion, over any other responsibility except imperative family obligation.
In 1918, we were on the sidelines.
When the war has been won, the women in the Army will march shoulder to shoulder with the men in the great victory parades that will celebrate the return of peace to the world.
ما أطولك مشيتني حافي.
I mean, we're pro-war, anti-war, but we have many people that feel like that, oh, we're just honoring people and they just went over and killed innocent people. But we like to think of these as victims of war. You know, they just got duped into thinking they were doing something for freedom and to save us. So it's hard for me to call them war criminals, but there are people that feel that we're not being anti-war enough, that we're honoring these guys too much. So I don't know how subtle our message is. You know, we kind of worry about that. You know, we don't want to look like we're glorifying that we went to Iraq and Afghanistan.
I was a propagandist in the Army. That's what I did. And so it's really easy for me to see how people get swept up by these PR messages. You know, we're out there defending freedom, whatever that means.
You know, it's interesting that people coming back and don't say that anymore. The first few years they were feeling they're defending freedom. Now they're pretty much they're re-enlisting because their friends are there. They don't know what else to do. There's no job. This is all they know. And you know, and 3 tours back to back, 13 months. What else can you know? You're not even present anymore. Very concerned about the conditions of so many people coming back with.
Right. That was, I guess that's the other question. If you guys were to add the suicides, soldier suicides and veteran suicides, you would take the whole beat.
People are shocked.
Even with Red Crosses, would still take the whole beat.
People are still shocked about the women getting raped over there.
My body's ill.
This is my own personal feeling that if we saw more women leadership presence, at least 50%, half and half, a balance of masculine and feminine leadership, we wouldn't be looking at these seas of crosses and constant wars. Because women are better at conflict resolution, and the major thing is it's hormones. We give birth to life, and we're not so quick to destroy it. I even had a doctor once that told me that the drug that kills more people in the world than any other is not heroin, and it's not cocaine, it's testosterone. I mean, it is their nature, and that's fine, but you know, it needs to be in balance with the feminine nature. So that's my opinion.
Expected increase the cases of cancer in Baghdad mainly because most of the Baghdad is exposure to heavy bombing with in this war, and most of congenital malformation, the baby born without head, without limb, and without nose, without eye. Before the war, most of the Iraqi women after delivery say this is boy or girl, but after the war you say this is normal or abnormal.
Does anyone want to ask a question or make a comment while Leo's setting up? Alejandra? Yeah.
What was your motivation for joining the Army initially?
I was a teenage mother, and I did volunteer. I didn't have any parents support, and my husband's family hasn't supported to a point, but since I didn't have any college education, I couldn't do that full-time work. I was working like 3 or 4 part-time jobs, so I had enough to pay rent and pay my bills. I lived on my own since I was 16, but I can get help here. I can do that 4 days a week.
So I just wanted to say I love the way of satisfying the assignment by making a video that's your expression and sharing it with the site and the veterans and populating that site with your point of view and a feminist point of view. And I actually think it's a really powerful video too. So it's a really wise response to her saying. So thank you. Okay. Leo?
So for this project, I wanted to combine what I have found in my research on the Craigslist Queer Forum. Specifically, I have been examining posts in depth about the family and constructions of family and how a lot of LGBTQ people, when they're coming out and during the coming out process, they actually experience a sense of being exiled, a sense of excommunication from their families, from the friends, and from any close relatives to them. And this is a pressing issue because many of them were looking for advice as to why not commit suicide. For me, this has been a big topic of concern throughout my academic career. And to pursue this project, in reality, I wanted to see what the family dynamic was like within the Latino culture and relate it back to the ways in which these men or these boys or these women are being excommunicated in their family, and seeing how connections between a sense of family and the coming out process are intertwined with each other. So I conducted a focus group with 5 Latinas in my community. They were from the ages of 29 to 57. One of them was a self-identified lesbian. The other 2 worked in social service sectors. And one of them was a mother of 7. Within this, they all had experience with childbearing and child care. So they all knew what it was to develop a relationship with another individual and have very a personal connection. But for them, for these women, the family dynamic was something that was very much stable. It consisted of a nuclear conception of the family dynamic, which was mother, father, and siblings. Although for them, trust and the longevity of the relationship actually mediated the effects of the family. So for them, if they didn't have enough trust or if they didn't engage enough with the brother or with the sister, then even they were family according to blood ties, but they weren't family emotionally, spiritually, or in a sense of developing a relationship. But yet they would stay by their family and actually come and join for them and join in solidarity for their issues. But when I raised the question of the coming out process, this shifted the table completely, especially for the 57-year-old woman. For her, this was a sense of deception. She felt a lot of the time, she felt that if her child was coming out to her, and she's been living with her child for 18 or 19 years, and as a mother, she is supposed to know who her child is. She felt that if her child was to come out to her, it would be a great sense of deception, and it would be as if she never knew her child, because she sees the sexuality and the way it organizes lived experiences according to gender as well, how this is connected to the individual. And what this does, and how this is connected to the online queer forum, is that this reinforces a sense of shame within the LGBTQ Latino community, and it also doesn't allow the individual to outwardly come out. And what this does, it makes the individual actually hide or mask or try to pass for a straight individual through not associating with homosexual or feminine types of interactions or remaining on the down low. But again, this is heightened, and this heightens the risk for anything from HIV status to drug use and other I don't want to say deviant, other dangerous sorts of lifestyle choices. But this was also scary for the LGBTQ individual, but not scary. It gave me a sense of why these individuals use the site. So I always looked at how individuals interacted, but I never got a sense of how individuals within the queer forum actually why the reasoning for occupying that space was. For me, I connected it to the shame that is brought onto the family through the association of homosexuality and certain types of interactions. And I thought that the space provided these individuals with an ability to express themselves freely and look for advice, but in a way that wouldn't harm their family and wouldn't bring about to them a shame that is augmented through community ridicule and through community critique. So very much within the Latino family, collectivism and familismo is very much centralized and pertinent, and thus community critiques and individual identity isn't just related with the individual, but it's also connected to the community. So through the shame that is felt with homosexuality, an individual cannot express themselves. So they reorient themselves into this space and take control of this space, trying to manage it and create a space where they feel safe with each other and where they feel safe enough to explore these avenues of sexual orientation and sexual practices. But at the same time, they are receiving the same ridicule and the same critique from other LGBTQ individuals within this space because of the power and how power is functioning within the space. Much like in the real world, where the family is defining who they could be, how they could act, and what gender performativity they could actually carry out, the space is also doing the same. The space is normalizing homosexuality and the actions. It's creating a homonormative sense of what it is to be homosexual, gay, homosexual, lesbian, transsexual, or whatever it may be. And this is exerted through the same conception of you're not supposed to act that way, which is parallel or very much aligned with the same way that society and the dominant Latino culture is telling them how to act, either in a very masculine or a very feminine way. So these two spaces are intertwined by, these two spaces are intertwined very much by the modes of the way they regulate and they control power. And this is mainly due to the mediating of interactions and through normalizing ideas, actions into specific and rigid categories. For example, a dominant and prevalent thread in the Craigslist Queer Forum was whether gay men should actually have sex with feminine men. What was the point of gay men being gay if they wanted to engage with someone who exerted feminine values and feminine performativity? Why would you want to be with the guy that's like a girl? Why not just go with the girl? And this is the same exertion that is kind of made by the 57-year-old that was in my focus group. She was like, I would not want to understand why these men want to engage with other men if it serves no purpose. She was also thinking of it from a reproductive value, not only from a homonormative value, from a heteronormative sense, but also from the sense of reproduction, which is also largely influenced by their Catholic background, which all 5 participants of the focus group were. So for me, the amalgamation of the cyber world and the real world came through the ways in which they restrict a subject's action and reduce it to a form of objectification and a form of the way in which interactions and modes of action are actually not reinforcing self-conceptions, but reinforcing communal stigmatization.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments for Leo?
Yes.
So you had a focus group and you asked them these certain questions, right?
Yeah.
Did you find this focus group also threatening to what you found online?
Did I find it threatening to what I found online?
Did you find the things that they believed in threatening, or
I
the people you think post on these certain things?
It's threatening to a degree because of the level of deceit that they're asking an individual to engage in, and what these actions actually mean in terms of how the individual is supposed to live their lives. Being on the down low heightens HIV infection by about 4.5 to 6.5% in males, and this is because a lot of the times the males do not want to actually go to the HIV testing center because they don't want to be associated with any type of homosexual interaction or anything that could point them within the direction of associated with the direction of homosexuality. And it is that association that they're scared of, or that association that is also tied to the shame that they could bring to their family, which is mediated through community critiques, that also reorients them to look through another avenue within the online queer space. But then that itself is highly regulated and highly homonormative, and asking them to fit into rigid categories. So the comparison between both spaces is the way that they function in aligning power with heteronormative values.
So one of the things that would be, did you take any photographs, or how did you document the chat group?
Well, I have photographs of the women, and I have a report for them. But what I was gonna do is I was gonna post on the Craigslist forum, since I've been kicked out of the Craigslist queer forum. Well, not officially, but by the members themselves. I have to look for an avenue in which I could actually post this up, because I find that it would be very reaffirming for the individuals who are looking for this type of advice. But also, as a feminist researcher, I don't want to be an imperialist, and I don't want to just assert myself in a space where my research isn't seen as productive.
You know, it might be interesting, and this should be the last thing. You could blog it somewhere, including on the class space, and then put the link on the forum.
Okay.
So that, you know what I'm saying, you could say, I conducted a study, I have some interesting conclusions about how the queer forum works, and if you want to know more, and then just put the link. Or you could put that someplace else.
I was actually gonna put it up on, there's this new blog that started, it's a Feminists Are Not Scary blog. It was, yeah, so I'm already working with the developer contributor.
So send us the link when you do it, so
yeah.
we can all see how you, and I'd love to see some pictures of the women
Okay.
in your group on the blog. That would be great.
All right.
Thanks. Okay.
All right, so for my project, I decided to focus on the act of cosplaying, which is essentially dressing up as a character from pop culture, literature, television, comic books, movies. It's just anything, basically. So I decided to kind of immerse myself in this forum that's called American Cosplay Paradise, and just kind of analyze whether or not it was a feminist space, and to kind of bridge the gap between my experience online and my experience in reality. I decided to actually make a costume and document the experience. So that's the scrapbook that's going around right now. And I kind of was deliberating between making a PowerPoint presentation and making a scrapbook, and I realized that I spent so much time online and on the forum that I actually just wanted to do something that required physical activity in real time and space. So right now I'm going to kind of read you guys the notes I took, because I'm not as good as Leo and my memory is like kind of shot. So So firstly, when I decided to work on this cosplay costume, I wanted to compare my experience with the description given by cosplayers I had analyzed in my ethnography. A couple common motivations for cosplaying that I gauged from the people I interviewed were that the act is de-stressing. It kind of helps you relax, kind of takes away from the pressures of daily life, and is just kind of a therapeutic activity. Another motivation was it's a creative outlet. It kind of allows you to be artistic in a productive way, in an active way, and a lot of people were really found a lot of gratification in doing that. And kind of a more obvious one is it's kind of an homage to a favorite character or series or something you particularly like from this form of pop culture. And I actually experienced all of these. It was really, really, really fun. And as you guys will see in my photo diary, the costume was actually suggested by people I had talked to on the forum, particularly one person who had been really receptive to all the messages I had been sending. And we kind of deliberated it for a while, and she kind of came to the conclusion that I looked like this particular character called Relina, who's from an anime series that was popular in the late 90s called Mobile Suit Gundam Wing. And you know what I'm talking about? Okay, yeah, so yeah, okay, because that was kind of big on Cartoon Network as well when, when we were younger, yeah. So I was familiar with it. And yeah, so it was really cool. And it's part of this genre of anime called mecha, which kind of revolves around the use of heavy armor and heavy robotic armor and kind of fighting each other in these really big, bulky suits that you operate that are really destructive and crazy. But the cool thing about this particular character is that she's actually a pacifist, and I realized that she's a really feminist character. She's incredibly intelligent, and she's actually a high-powered female diplomat. And in the series, she's kind of working her way through this incredibly masculinated space and really just trying to hold her own in this space, which she does so, and she does so effectively. So the costume itself was actually pretty easy to make. It's just kind of a plain pink dress, sort of beaded belt, tights, shoes, but I had absolutely zero sewing experience at all, so it was kind of a challenge for me, actually. But the most intense and kind of interesting part was actually taking the photos, because that required assuming the character and acting as the character, which was sort of difficult for me because I don't have a lot of acting experience. I don't know. So I had to actually rewatch clips of the anime and kind of immerse myself in this character. I had to basically become this feminist character in a really particular way and sort of emulate that in an active space by posing in a certain way or kind of holding myself or carrying myself in a certain way or dressing a certain way. So that was a really, really interesting experience. And in making the costume, I found that the forum was really, really helpful. The community is built almost entirely around costume making, and the forum really allowed me to kind of compare my process with the process of other people, because this costume had been done before, and so I was able to kind of look at other people's photos and say, okay, well, mine looks more like this person or less like this person, or I'm on the right path or I'm not. So that was really attractive to me as an experienced costume maker. Plus, there was a lot of helpful tips when it came to kind of styling the shoot, like how I should do my makeup, or how I should pose, or what lighting I should use. So that was all really, really helpful to me. And yeah, so the performative aspects, making the costume and taking the photos really helped me kind of bridge the X-reality gap. And it was definitely a new experience for me. And it was really fun just kind of walking around Scripps' campus and having people looking at me while my friends taking these photos of me, and I'm in front of the dorms and people are like, what are you doing here? And I'm just like, I'm doing my cosplay project. So it was really fun. And I was really proud of my work, and I was really proud of myself when I saw how similar my costume looked to the costumes of other people. And I guess success in cosplaying is sort of gauged on how well you can emulate the character costume-wise and kind of personality-wise. It's kind of like this whole big project that's actually pretty complex. So ultimately, I found that I was really, really successful and really proud of my work. Yeah, so to put something that's almost entirely digitized, like this anime character whom I watch on television, and kind of bring her into reality using myself as a vessel was a really kind of empowering experience, and it definitely made me feel good about myself in a productive and creative way. And I could almost entirely relate to what other cosplayers had experienced when they said that this is kind of a mode of release and therapy for me, because it just makes me feel like my actions are creating a productive, realistic outcome while also having fun with it. And that was a huge aspect of the project, was having fun and kind of successfully cosplaying as this avatar. And then to kind of make the entire project come full circle, I took the photos I had taken previously and I uploaded them onto my American Cosplayer Paradise Forum profile picture, and I kind of had the caption say something I consider relatively feminist, which is like, you know, I feel like a total badass, like cosplaying as Relina because she's so awesome. And obviously I don't have like a lot of characters to kind of like write as much as I would like to. But I mean, just kind of having that and feeling like the photo made me kind of transition into an actual part of the forum and kind of helped me solidify my feminist experience on the forum, because it was an active way for me to kind of address my feminist experience on the forum in writing that caption and uploading that photo. And this character, the entire experience was just a really fun and ultimately really feminist and safe experience for me. I felt like the forum was incredibly receptive to my questions, and even the initial ethnography, everyone was really willing to participate. I didn't experience any hate on the forum at all. No one was, even when being interviewed, people were really excited to talk to me. There wasn't a lot of apprehension at all, and I felt really comfortable putting an image of myself on this space, because a lot of people, I think, would be apprehensive about that, but I felt completely comfortable in doing that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Amen. I think this is, I love your book.
I love it. It's so cute. And at the beginning where you like embroidered my diary.
Yeah, that was like an initial sort of. But I feel like you should digitize it and put it on site.
Okay.
Because I think, yeah, well,
scan it or
scan it, take pictures of it.
I usually take pictures of it like a week to take pictures of it. Okay. It's like what you put it together is so cute, and you have it like scanned and taken.
And I think they would really appreciate it too. Yeah.
Do you think it's something you'll do in the future still? Like?
I really think I would do it. I think it just kind of required that first step, but I think ultimately I'll do it again.
I want to see you in 20 years, like,
yeah,
totally, like.
Why they go to the convention?
Go to convention.
Is because then you get to share it with people who want to see it and understand it, and that's really what's happening at the convention. It's people walking around, kind of admiring each other, and they take pictures of you, and it feels really good. Okay.
Let me just figure this out real quick. It wouldn't download.
So that's your PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
What's the issue?
It wouldn't download on this computer for some reason. Oh, there you go. Never mind.
There you
go. All right. So my project was on K-pop girl groups in context of feminism. And my avatar for the Socialite Forum was 20 years old, Asian American female that is going crazy about Girls' Generation. And I asked this question to both on the forum and both to the people in real life that I had a short meeting with. And I'm not going to read the entire question, but it's basically about that I'm in a feminist class talking about how girl groups in K-pop culture can be portrayed negatively as just a fulfilling tool for men's fantasies. And then it was actually interesting, like what kind of answers that I got on Socialfied, because they were just name dropping all the other girl groups other than Girls' Generations about how sexualized they are and how wrong they look, but not Girls' Generations. And I'm assuming that's because I was on a fan site for Girls' Generation mainly. But yeah, they were actually talking about how they prefer to like Girls' Generation rather than other girl groups who are often perceived more boyish than very girly and like ideal Asian girl type of girl groups. And also there was an interesting point that one of the users actually pointed. She was saying that if a girl wears a short skirt and comes out on the TV, that can be just sexualized in any ways depending on who the viewer is. So she was just posing a question that like, you know, if you think about it that way, everything can be sexualized. You know, sometimes girls look at guys' shirtless pictures and, you know, go crazy about it, but why can't guys go crazy about girls wearing short skirts? So I felt like on Socialfied I got a lot of very defensive answers about how feminism can see Girls' Generation negative. And yet they would be very, I don't know, pointing fingers at other girl groups that are, to me, as similar as Girls' Generations. Oops. And in my X-reality space, I had a more diverse group of people because I mainly met with just general K-pop fans, not only Girls' Generation fans. And we did this fun activities. It's called 15 Days of Handwriting Challenge that's going around on Tumblr among K-pop fans. It's basically every day you write different writings of things that you want to talk about your favorite artist about K-pop. This is mine because it says Girls' Generation in different ways you can possibly say. And this one is saying, I love Taeyang and I'm a boy. And he wrote exactly the same thing in Korean that he learned. He was white. And this one's talking about how she got into K-pop listening to Wonder Girl's Nobody from her cousin and her friends. And then this one is talking about looking at the Girls' Generation's video, he found one girl very attractive because she had short hair. And she was the only one with short hair in the group at that time. And the other one is just talking about the name of a member that he really likes. So I felt a lot more comfortable talking to people in person. I think that was mainly because we can understand each other's tone. And I mainly did this project because, this activity because I wanted to show people that they're general K-pop fans, not just, like certain groups, so that they wouldn't just name drop when they're talking about, certain groups or anything, so that people wouldn't get offended in the discussion. And actually, it was really interesting because there were a lot of different definitions of feminism came up in the discussion. Some of them are saying, oh, feminism is just about women, and some of them are actually correcting those thoughts that, it's more about equality in society rather than just focusing on women. So the conversation kind of got carried away to like, oh, then why don't we talk about how K-pop boy bands are sexualized? Because some people find Asian boy bands very attractive and in a way sexual, because they're oftentimes buff and ripped and shirtless on TV. So yeah, actually, the conversation got developed into, not just focusing on K-pop girl groups, but like K-pop in general. And yeah, I just wanted to like compare quickly about Socified and X-Reality space. Yeah, it was, I felt like I was more in control of the topic when I was talking to people in person rather than on the internet, because when I actually posted that question on the forum of Socified, they were kind of like talking about, you know, their opinion, not necessarily answering my question that I posted, but more like, oh, you know, this is what I think, and I really don't care what you just asked. Whereas, you know, in real life, people were, you know, stay focused on the topic, and the conversation actually got deeper than, you know, I actually expected it to be. So as a conclusion, I think Socified was a feminist space because, you know, although I got some defensive answers, they still let me talk freely about feminism and other possible sexualization of K-pop girl groups. And I think X-Reality space was definitely a feminist space, I think because I intended to keep it that way and because I initiated the conversation mostly. And from my X-Reality experience, I think what makes a feminist space is safe space, that we can talk about a lot of different topics without feeling threatened or feeling endangered. So, yay, that was my presentation.
Charlotte, you're next, and there's time for one question or comment for Haven about her project. So how many people did you have in your K-pop group? 5. Perfect. Yeah. Oh, Charlotte's awesome. I think that was I like the activity that you guys did. Yeah. And I would love you to think about how, you know, you might re-enter that onto the internet. Okay, I just set up. Yeah, no, I think that'll be a great final, you know, piece of the project. Okay, Gaga.
I have to pull up my PowerPoint.
Yeah. I just want to like defend you. Like you were the person who knew that we saw feminism in the class and like had this interest in it. And like I know there were other people in the class at the beginning of the semester who felt that way too, who also dropped it. So I just want to commend you for sticking with it. I want to commend you for all the hard work that you did, and I think that you really came out with like good understanding. Like I just think you did great work. So thank you. I think you did a really good job this semester.
She did just say it all like it was a normal thing, huh?
Yeah, I remember the first day you were like, I don't really know how to feel about feminism. And like, whether or not you're like a feminist now doesn't matter, because I feel like you engaged with it, which made you a feminist for a semester, you know? And you need to continue that, right?
Hello. Good morning. For my X-Reality, I decided to have a Gaga for Gaga party at my house in response to issues that I found on the Lady Gaga Little Monsters fan site. Let me see if this is downloaded. Yeah, this is a tie-dye dress in the style of Lady Gaga's meat dress. I will show you that actually. So I just tie-dyed it, and then my friend who makes clothing made a pattern, and we based it off of Lady Gaga's dress. And I borrowed this Lady Gaga wig from my friend. So, wait, here. Yeah, so I invited about 20 people over to my house on Saturday night from 8:30 to 10:30, and I didn't really tell people that it was for the class. I told like some people before, and I kind of just wanted it to be at like the background of people's minds when they were doing this, because people don't really like doing academic things on the weekend, but I figured if it was like kind of understood once they got there, / like kind of discussed, it wouldn't be like the focus of the event. And I guess people kind of were wondering why this was happening, because I made this Facebook event to invite people, and this is not something that I would normally do. So it was kind of in the style of my avatar that, you know, oh, okay. And I was speaking in like a different online lingo, so I think that people entered my house with different expectations, which is what I wanted, because my goals for the event were just to like, I wanted people to be comfortable and dress up and kind of for a little while just kind of disrupt or exist outside of or subvert like dominant notions of self-expression. And I actually felt that it was pretty successful. In addition to, so I changed my house a little bit because a lot of people that came, they all knew each other and they all knew me, which made the space pretty safe as opposed to Little Monsters. But since they like knew my house so well, I wanted to change it as much as I could so that they would get like, they would just feel like it was more formal in that it was a party, but more casual and creative, and that they could express themselves in different ways. So just what kind of made that possible was having this private space that I could control. And it was also really helpful and I think like essential to my project that my friend Jonik makes his own clothing and had a bunch of clothing that he wanted everyone to wear. So even if people didn't dress up, everyone dressed up to some extent before they came, but once they got there, they were able to kind of like choose what pieces they wanted to express themselves through, and it was kind of funny to see like who chose what. I think also just having these people who were looking for fun and like wanted to have like a good time on Saturday was really helpful. And I have to give a shout out to alcohol for this event, because people at this point in my life rely on it to make situations more comfortable, and this was a situation that I think a lot of people would have had trouble engaging in without this like party atmosphere. I think it was also really important that we were in physical space, because there was a lot of group energy that encouraged people to engage with each other and engage with developing their own identities at that moment in time. And people were able to communicate with like emotionally, not just through ambiguous formations of letters that are hard to interpret online. So here are some pictures, but yeah, so a comparison of the two. I think that my space was similar in that there was an absence of people of color in my space, which I mean that's pretty consistent with Little Monsters, and I don't really have that many friends that are of color, so that was kind of something that in terms of race was kind of hard to address. And I think they were similar also because people were to different extents putting themselves on display, and I think on Little Monsters it's more problematic because they are fighting, they're engaging in the body revolution, which may or may not be empowering. So I think also my party and the people that were there really valued like diversity and youth empowerment, and they are open to queer identities. And then I think the way that my space was different was that no one really liked Lady Gaga, and a lot of the music that we were listening to was just like remixes, which I thought was appropriate because we were kind of remixing this culture. And I also made a cake that I can't believe I don't have a picture of. It's like Lady Gaga's face, and then underneath it says socialize this way, because we're not really born this way. And yeah, and my space just allowed for interpersonal connections. And I would argue that for a brief moment in time, we were kind of subverting the notions that we, just like subverting the way that we express ourselves, and that way is usually pretty commodified, because like visually the way we represent ourselves is often through clothing that is part of a large capitalist exploitative process. And I think that the clothes that Jonik makes are dampen that system a little bit, because he puts the work in and he wants to put the work in. So I think that was kind of exciting, and I'm happy that I had that opportunity.
Charlotte, you need to wrap up.
Oh, okay. That's just an outfit, and that's it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That seemed, I would love you and Gina to talk a little bit about what it feels like to wear costumes.
Yeah.
And her thoughts about performance were really useful in relationship to your thoughts about sort of embodied creative expression. Like they're really quite complementary. Yours is a very solo act, except for, and yours was really about sort of production of temporary communities, and so they really were interesting to me in that way too. But how do you feel wearing a costume right now? Did you listen to some things Gina was saying about empowerment and embodiment and creativity?
I feel good.
Yeah, anything else?
I don't know. I think it would have been, I don't know if it would have made as much sense, because like my avatar like really loves Lady Gaga, but I think it would have been more fun to dress as something else. But I wanted to like be my avatar, but I don't really like Lady Gaga, and I don't like her outfits.
Well, okay, but now you might have more appreciation for what she does.
I love how much effort you put into everything, like from your outfit to the cake to like the party to like kind of creating a different identity in making on Facebook anyway. Like, I just feel like you put so much effort and time and attention to this. Like I just really it was so good.
And is it worth it?
Yeah, it was so fun.
That's like your friend who makes the clothes. It's like your friend who makes the clothes. When you make things with that sort of space of generosity and creativity, it feels good, which is also one of the things Gina was talking about. And when they're not temporary things like the things we make on the internet, then you get something else back for having made them.
How do I enter full screen? There, right? Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, so that's a hard act to follow in terms of the party aspect of the project, because the Scripps voice reading party is not quite the same as a Gaga for Gaga party, unfortunately. But so the space that I chose to inhabit was the Scripps Voice Online. I sort of give a little bit of an introduction to sort of what I did. And right here, this is just a bit of an example of the space. It's kind of small, so I'm not sure you'll really be able to see what as much as I was expecting. You can't? Okay. But so it's very feminist oriented. There's a lot of articles regarding color and feminist issues, and it's a very active space in terms. I mean, you can even see from the popular articles an open letter to the Scripps senior staff, diversity, inclusion, and microaggression at Scripps, male feminists, a silent minority, etc. And so part of the first thing that what drew me into the Scripps Voice Online was the culture online and the lack of this commenting culture, where there's not that much of a open discourse on the forum itself. And so in the beginning, with our first assignment, I went in and I left 3 different comments. And I was actually happy to find, when I came back to it a bit later, that it had stimulated a bit of commentary. Not by that many other people than who, I mean, like Lily Foss, the feminist columnist, replied, and I really like to see how she appreciated the comments. I think that it was nice for her to get feedback. And in this later part of my ethnography, when I actually commented on her, when I asked her to answer some of these survey questions that I had for her, she really focused on how she had recently had this commenter like tell her these things she really appreciated, you know, hearing that she kind of had a fan base, and I was like, I'm not going to tell you it was me. So she, you know, her and then another person had commented, and it sort of started to have this bit of commentary growing. And what I do think is a pro of the commenting culture is that it allows a place for people to share and develop ideas with each other and people who they might not be in contact with otherwise. You know, ask and answer questions, stimulate discourse on important issues, and I think a big part of it that I think is missing from and important from the Voice Online is if an article starts to get, you know, 50 comments and it clearly is an important topic on the Voice Online, it might attract more attention from the administration to do something about this issue, when otherwise, if no one's commenting on it, it sort of is probably just put out there and then not as much has changed. So I think that's the one thing that I think that could really be a benefit of it. But then there's the cons, and the cons are pretty bad. And that's just about everyone kind of just fights with each other in comments. It doesn't turn out to always be that productive, and it can just be turn into this big 5C rivalry of an article, everyone talking about like, oh, yeah, that's so Pomona of you guys for like hating on CMC, and that's so Scripsy of you guys for doing that, you know, and it's just, no one wants that. And so the ethnography that I had, I engaged with 3 different people 2 writers, one, the feminist columnist, the editor-in-chief, and someone who had contributed. And basically what I sort of figured out is that it's a very safe space and people find it to be a safe space, but people would rather be talking about it offline. And I think that also just people aren't that engaged. Like there's too many other distractions, I feel, with the Voice Online. Since it doesn't have this commenting culture, people are more likely to read the articles and then get distracted by something on Facebook and not be paying too much attention to that. But I think the most important part is that it's a feminist space and a color-safe space because it's an outlet for student opinion. You don't have to be a staff writer to submit an article there. You can write an article if you want. You can get an issue out there. You can take the ideas and it can lead to discussion, and I think it's just generally a place of activism. Okay, and then, so using our voices. This is my final project where I decided to sort of replicate what I had always seen was happening with a voice in my sort of in my reality. And in this case, it was just, I tried to have a voice reading party, which was not that appealing to a lot of people. And so I couldn't really get many people to come. Except for, so I had basically I live in College Park too, so the only people who actually showed up were one of my roommates, and then 2 girls who also I'm friends with who live in the complex as well. And it turned out that the article that was paid most attention to was the feature that was about sexual assault and rape on campus. So I think the thing that I saw that was very interesting, that was really unexpected with this, was that, first of all, they became engaged with it way more quickly than I expected them to. And it switched from being like something that everyone was kind of reluctant to participate in to just like literally I handed out the papers and they just instantly just started to talk about it. And you can see that, oh wait, sorry, you can see here that they were like kind of laughing about certain things because we know a lot of, this is not being responsive. You know, they were kind of laughing and joking around, it's out of control. And weren't taking it very seriously. And then like 5 minutes into it, you could tell that they were like, oh wait, and things started to like click, and that's when I say that reality sets in. And I use that sort of as a pun to be like when the reality of the article that they're talking about really kind of to set in. I mean, instead of taking and kind of laughing and joking about this sexual assault article, starting to be like, this is not funny, and getting engaged with it. And also the concept of when the reality of being face-to-face with people and having that face-to-face interaction that allowed them to kind of make that transition from not taking it really seriously to taking it seriously and actually getting something from the conversation. And you can see here, I mean, look at, I don't know if you can see the girl in the middle's face, but like you can just start to see her like slowly get like really, really emotional about it. She's getting really upset and like just the conversation. And I thought that this was a great set of images because you can see my roommate on the right kind of explaining something, and then like the girl in the middle and the girl on the left, their faces just changing in response to it. And basically, so the progression, I thought that the progression was one of the things that I really noticed that I thought was unlikely to happen in an online space as well. Like instead of kind of spiraling out of control, I found it sort of became more concentrated and focused on a point, and it was actually, you know, questions were asked, questions were answered, opinions were able to be shared, and opinions were able to be changed, because I think the biggest part of it was me watching them and their body languages and their facial expressions was something that I really saw people were moving off of and understanding, and you don't have that when you are commenting online. You know, people you might say something, but you might not realize how they're saying it or what they really mean by it, and that can lead to people attacking each other and coming, you know, just whereas when you're face to face, that's not what's happening. And this isn't only the girl in the middle is from CMC, and the two on the opposite sides are from Scripps. And I also thought that even though I kind of had intended for more people to come, the setting with 4 people seemed to actually be more natural to how the conversation actually plays out. If you're at lunch with a person or with a couple people, or you're doing homework with a couple people, that's where this conversation sort of really comes. And I also noticed that, I mean, I just thought that it was, oh, and another thing that I thought that was really interesting was the way that this led is I even brought up with Alejandra what I had learned last Wednesday about the rape and sexual assault culture in the Army, and talking to them about that and seeing how, I think that this is where that conversation was, how upset it made them, and how that kind of conversation was stimulated by something in the voice, and how it made people really have more questions and be eager, and it really stimulated, like, I feel like what I saw the most, that was the most interesting to me, was how in the beginning, it sort of seems like people have these rose-colored glasses on about the reality of rape and sexual assault and these issues, and they're like, that doesn't happen, what are they talking, like, you know, and then they're like, and then you just kind of have to snap them out of it, and then they're like, I mean, just in the sense that I think our daily lives, people like to pretend like everything's great. And in this case, you know, these articles and bringing things up and bringing in new pieces of information, it's like those rose-colored glasses are taken off, and real discussion can happen, and it's actually productive. And I really enjoyed this experience because I saw what I had sort of theorized was the benefit of this sort of culture and the lack of commenting culture, but the existence of that culture in a real life space. I saw that come to life right in front of my eyes more naturally than I could have expected. And I even caught it on camera. I was just sort of like clicking away, and they were really unaware of me, and I thought that was great that it happened so organically. But and that's my last thing. And as I was finishing this up, I just saw a hilarious Facebook user post this quote, "Why should I work on my homework when there are wrong people on the internet to correct?" And I was like, that's so relevant because that's what a lot of people are doing. I think that's part of the commenting culture. I just thought it was funny. And yep.
We're going to do one more and then take our break. It's Cindy. And Cassidy, Cindy, go up? Yeah. I thought that mirrors and hands had a lot to do with each other. Yeah. You know, and some of the theorizing we were doing, and then I was going to say, Charlotte, like, that when you can control a space, you can produce these kinds of more intense, more focused, more productive experiences than tend to happen online. I guess, you know, perhaps as well. When we enter these already made spaces, we don't have any control over the dynamic. Yeah. We produce the space ourselves. We do. Yeah.
Okay. So disclaimer, I officially haven't slept in 24 hours.
It's official.
It's official. So if I start rambling or going off topic, I'm really sorry. Yeah. I have a little like zine kind of looking thing that I made about the event that I had, and it was the event I did was Women and Women Identified Bike Ride Study Break, but it just became a bike study break with snacks, and it was only myself and 2 other friends, and it became like a 3-hour conversation about bikes in a variety of different things about bikes, and just finals, being stressed, yeah. So, but initially, the purpose and the goals of the idea was about like creating a safe space for women and women-identified people at Pitzer, to de-stress, to liberate a male space, and talk about feminism, bikes, and college, and how these 3 things intersect in our lives. The way I did outreach was through like Student Talk and Facebook, and I used an artist called Sarah M. Lyons Image, who posts her work on Tumblr, and I like put her image and her Tumblr site on the zine just to give her credit, because it's a really cool image that uses Bikini Kill's Rebel Girl lyrics, and then it's an image that she drew of a woman on a bike who looks really awesome. So like I said, it just became a study break, and I called them my homegirls, Sade and Cora. We all knew each other, so it was a really comfortable space that we recreated in the Huerta room, where we actually always meet on Mondays because of the LSU meetings that are held there. So the 3 of us were familiar with the space already and really comfortable in it. And we had just been sitting there studying and eating snacks already. And we talked about our relationship with our bike, what biking looks back at home, what biking looks when we were abroad, and what biking looks on campus. The 3 of us had different, like, I guess, current relationships with our bikes. Sade was looking for one because she originally had a beach cruiser, and figured that it was getting too heavy. She didn't really like it, and she's looking for a road bike, but because of her like really petite stature, it's really hard to find a bike. So her goal is to find a bike over break. And then Cora, she's had a flat tire since for a month. So even if she wanted to, she just hasn't had time to fix it. So I was the only one with a functioning bike. And then when it came to biking back home, I live in LA, Sade lives in Temecula, and Cora lives in Oakland. So they're really different terrains, I guess. LA is not built for bikes, it's built for cars. So personally, I never really feel safe to go out and ride around on a bike. But I think it's something that I'm willing to try, maybe over winter break, eventually, just because I know it is trying to become more bike friendly. And then Cora, she said she biked around in Oakland all the time, especially over summer when she had a job that she can bike to all the time too. But she was annoyed because there was a lot of catcalling all the time and a lot of cars creeping right next to her. And then Sade said that at Temecula, people just do it just as a family event on a Saturday evening, just bike around. And it's not really a mean of transportation or a mean for like socializing. It's mainly just to go on like a little bike around the block and then go back home. And then when we were talking about our abroad experiences, Sade went to Parma, Italy, and I went to Ecuador. And in Parma, she said that it was women and men of all ages biking all the time to get anywhere. And that in the rain, the women would be with their stilettos, with their umbrella in one hand, and then with the other hand on their bike. And that she just thought they were really cool looking, and just like, there was no reason for not to use the bike for a mean of transportation. And in Ecuador, drivers are extremely crazy in Ecuador, in the capital, in Quito. And a friend was actually doing their research paper on bike culture there. And when I talked to him about it, he said that there was a collective who was really trying to make the streets safer, and that one of their strategies was carrying a plastic baby. And whenever a car almost hit them, they would throw the baby at the car. And the driver would just like freak out because they're just like, oh my God, I killed somebody, or I hurt somebody. And that within a week, they found that like they felt the difference. Like it was much safer to ride around in your bike in Ecuador. And then other conversations that we had were just about when we've fallen, we're scared of about bikes. Like Sade, she's never had a road bike, so she's just really scared about when she does get it, how it's a little bit taller, how you have to lean in if she has drop-down bars. And then Cora was talking about how she's currently a sophomore, and the first time she rode a bike in a long time was for the OA trip, and she thought it was going to be a short ride, but it's like a 70-mile ride, and that she was always the last person in the ride, and right when they got to the resting spot, she would be the last one, and by the time she got there, they would have to keep going again. So she was just like on this 70-mile trek, and she pulled through, and that's what really like got her into like bringing her bike from home and really trying it out on campus. And she worked at the GBP shop her freshman year, and she said how she kind of talked to me about her experience there. And her first semester, she bonded with a lot of the women that worked there, and those were really she purposefully got shifts when they were there. And then once I think most of the people studied abroad in second semester, and that she just felt alienated, really excluded, she couldn't find a niche anymore, or like a space within that space. So she ended up quitting, and she doesn't work there anymore. So then that got me curious into like asking her more about how she just feels with bike culture in general, and then things that I had been like discovering or like experiencing, I guess, on the LA Fix site, and then what other women that I talked to from the Tumblr sites had discussed with me about it being a boys' club, and how there was a lot of like showmanship of, oh, I bought this $100 rim at so-and-so place. How these things were things that Cora had been feeling both at the GBP and also back at home whenever she went to go to the local bike shop when her bike was like needed fixing. That's the same feeling that she would get, and how the first time that happened to her was at the bike shop at home, and it was another woman doing that to her. And so this goes on with the other, I guess, things that I discovered online, how there's like what's the word? In order for a woman to be part of this like boys club, they have to forget their female identity and take on that like misogynistic role, or that kind of culture, I guess. Other things we talked about was just, for me, I wish we would have done the bike ride, just because it's a really stressful time, and going out and getting a fresh breath of air on my bike is really like it's very therapeutic, like how you found the cosplaying. And Cora also agreed, and it's just like, it's literally a fresh of breath air, and just like exiting the campus also is really important for our like own mental health and like sanity. Okay. And then since it didn't happen, I was just like, well, we should do something about it. And Cora had said that she had originally intended to take her bike back home because she wasn't really using it on campus. And we concluded that our goal for next semester was to actually, even if it's just us two, but actually go on bike rides. Our goal was to attend the Pomona Art Walk thing that they do like every month in downtown Pomona. So, yeah.
All right, we're getting a 12-minute break. We're going to start again at 4:15.
Is it donut time?
There's donuts in the lobby. Donuts in the lobby.
That's exactly what I need right now.
I'm gone. Donuts.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you have it, you can give it to me or email it to me.
Did you say that the papers diet?
I gave you a little gift of 2 days.
Yeah, well, this room in the museum is the project space, so each semester there's 1 or 2 artists that come in and, you know, sometimes it's a more traditional project where it's literally paintings installed on the wall. Before this, so this is the work of one artist. And
This is like, this is an installment.
Right. So
Okay.
normally the space looks more like a traditional gallery with paintings or other art objects.
That's really cool.
But this is a social practice project. So the artist put together this free speech auditorium. He's done a number of projects on Thursday nights, experimental meditation sessions, and you may have seen some things about some of them.
Absolutely.
So he's been doing that, and then there's also, of course, been the Diction for Dollars segment of that, where anyone can come in and get paid $1 a minute to give a speech. So people have done all sorts of things. I mean, they've literally read their own poetry or read something out of a book, talked about a belief of theirs. They've also done more free-form things. You have a lot of sort of stream of consciousness storytelling.
Who like monitors that? Is it like the work of the artist who kind of started the process? Like, or is there any, like, has it been a problem? Is it something you have had to, like, as administrator step in and like imagine like free speech like that is, you know, we have problems with that all over the country.
Yeah, and there was a lot of discussion about that, because we haven't done a project like this before, so there was a lot of discussion about that when this was getting set up, in terms of what people might do in here which would be considered maybe inappropriate, and what exactly does inappropriate mean? Mona College and I assume 5Cs across have a really high threshold in terms of what is considered inappropriate.
But we also have a strong code of conduct, like a very strong code of conduct. So when it becomes like a, like, I mean, I guess you're right that we're open to things like nudity and like experimental conversations, and but when it comes to like, there's a boundary when it crosses like respect for other human beings. Like when you step into the realm of disrespect, and I think probably the best word for it, or like kind of disrespect for yourself. That's when it starts to become problematic.
Yeah, it was interesting to actually look at the written information about that through the college, because there's 3 criteria that something has to, an action or a speech has to cross before it becomes something that's officially problematic.
That's so
But actually, there hasn't been anything in the States that's been, I mean, there's been certain presentations that some people might consider offensive, but that has more to do with their own beliefs as opposed to anything that is specifically directed at them, when that becomes more of a huge
I wonder if anyone actually watching us. Is there a lot of turnout? Do a lot of people?
Yeah, especially for the Diction for Dollars sessions. That's been really popular. People find that, yeah, it fills the room, people come with their friends. There's been people, as I say, making all sorts of different types of presentations. The artist workshop, having on Thursday nights has been popular. Although I would say that's when more with other artists from LA, students on campus. But we've also had a lot of classes coming in using the space like this. So that's great, because that's what we really wanted to promote with it.
So the words are his work as well?
Yeah, so the whole room is his installation, books, that everything that you see in this space. And it's been so great actually for the museum to have this kind of space available for people to come in and use.
I love it.
So we're going to be sorry to see it go.
Yeah. What is it going?
So this is just a temporary art installment. We're just This is like the last. This is his shows. He built the room, produced the possibility. Yeah.
And the so the live stream is also his.
Yeah.
Wow. What a special thing.
Gotta love artists.
To be part of.
Since you've experienced the success of it, would the college ever be willing to like sort of replicate it in a way, or is all of this, is the whole room itself coming down? Or is this room in space, everything
The
inside?
room stays, but it looks more like normally it's installed with paintings. It looks more like the other gallery spaces. No, the rug. It's kind of a white cube.
Hello.
Well, it's something, you know, the museum's actually moving up the street into the old science library.
Whose is this? Do I press OK?
And the success
Daniela, is this Daniela? Is this your presentation? Okay. Do I press OK or? Huh? Cancel. Where did mine go? No.
Being really attentive and focused on each other. I appreciate that.
All right.
All the projects so far have been really great.
So, yes. So since we've been working on a lot of online spaces, I decided to create a video and make my presentation online. And that is on YouTube. Let me just sign in, because somebody signed up.
Speaking of which, while she's going, everybody, your papers are due Friday. Email them to me. You can put them in the Sakai Dropbox if you're not ready. If you want to do that. I have not paid attention to who has and hasn't blogged. I feel like almost all of you have. Has anyone not blogged?
Right here.
Okay, send it to me. Okay, you've done it? Okay, send it to me.
Okay, yeah.
So just all of you do it. Okay. I
Okay.
would so prefer not to really worry about it. Then I feel like you've done it. Okay, so.
All right. So here is my video.
Make it big.
Okay.
And I might need to turn the sound up for you. So.
Okay, yeah. Also, it can get loud sometimes, so just so you know. Here we go.
Hello, fellow
classmates
and anybody who.
Okay.
Hello, fellow classmates and anybody who's watching this video. I am about to give a presentation on, not just a presentation, but an online presentation, a virtual presentation on my final project for my online feminist space ethnography project. So please sit back and enjoy the ride. So all semester we've been learning about feminism, and particularly feminism in online spaces. And so for our ethnography project, we had to pick an avatar, and I used myself as an avatar, so a queer Latina feminist woman, and pick an online space and figure out whether that online space is actually a feminist, non-racist space.
Anti-racist.
In hopes of having some great feminist discourse or trolling, I decided to adopt an online space of a very popular magazine that's known throughout the world, and specifically the United States, that caters to women about the ages of 18 to 28-ish, I'm going to say. I decided to adopt the online space of Cosmopolitan Magazine, aka Cosmo.
I'm sorry, I didn't know how to make this faster, so this part right.
So just to give you a visual of the online space that I interacted with the last couple months, here we have Cosmo's homepage, and as you can see, we have different categories. We have love and sex, fashion, hair and beauty, celebs, body, horoscopes, Cosmo on campus, comms and off forums, and more. And if we scroll down, you can see that it's a very simple and simple white and pink background. And down here, this is the F word is actually their feminist campaign, and it's them pretty much pushing the idea that Cosmopolitan is a feminist space and you should feel safe in this.
Also, just notice how I keep getting tired.
This here is under the forum section, and this is where I included my forum where I tried to start a feminist conversation to see whether this was actually a feminist, non-racist space. And here, this is my first, this is the first forum that I wrote, and it's titled Cosmopolitan, a safe space for feminist talk. And it pretty much asks the Cosmopolitan online users whether they think Cosmopolitan is a feminist space, whether it's a safe space for women and feminists. Oh, hello again. So I'm assuming that at this point you're probably dying to know whether Cosmo is a feminist, non-racist site. I mean, you're probably thinking it is, right? Because, I mean, they have the Cosmo Online Feminist campaign going in right now. And unfortunately, through my forums, through my discussions, I found out that Cosmo is not a feminist non-racist site. The reason for that is because, one, I was repeatedly attacked for being queer. I was repeatedly attacked for sharing and expressing my feminist ideals. And I was repeatedly told by a lot of the Cosmo online community that I wanted special treatment for being a feminist. So does that sound like a feminist site to you? Absolutely not. So for the second part of the project, we were told to bring our online experience into reality while at the same time creating a democratic, feminist, non-racist space. And so what I had my subjects do was come into my room, and I provided them with a bunch of snaps, provided them with a great environment, and I had them look through the magazine and pick out anything and cut out anything that spoke to them personally, that made them feel empowered. I next told them to share with the rest of us why this specific thing was empowering to them, why it spoke to them. And these were some of the results that I got.
The page with aviators and leather jackets. So I have one leather jacket that I wear every day because I don't like dressing overly feminine. In the magazine, I think you don't see, like, regular users of this magazine would not see the whole context behind this, and not, but in my eyes, like, the message that comes with the leather jacket is very different from how it's portrayed in Cosmopolitan. In Cosmopolitan, it's just a fashion statement.
I picked this article called "Is It Good to Be a Bitch?" and it got my attention because I felt like it's doing exactly what you're asking us to do, and like reappropriating something that's like traditionally seen as like bad in women, and that's like being a bitch, and how like being called a bitch is often something that happens to women when they're too, like, when they're free, or like they stand their ground and they're powerful, so they're like, being a bitch is a challenging of the norms that guide femininity. Yeah, I mean, it kind of does. Like, obviously, if you look through the rest of the magazine, it's, you know, articles about like beauty and fashion and like how to be a good sexual partner to a man, but like when you take this article, it's like, well, this is kind of in like discord with the rest of, you know, the representations of women that are in the magazine, but it's valuable.
This is a picture of a Latina on the cover of Cosmopolitan. Although the image is just kind of sexualized Latina, it's the only image that I found in the magazine where there was a woman of color, and not only that, but she's on the front page of Cosmopolitan. I feel like there has to be more representations that shed light on the Latina and showcase her as not only as a stereotypical image you see in magazines and TV, but show her as a person that's powerful, can also stand her own ground, and show that she is capable of doing anything that she puts her mind to. It's a different context, because when you see it throughout the other images, I was paying close attention to the other images that are in Cosmopolitan, and all these images show her as being very sexualized, or like just the women in general. But if you take it out, like if you just see this image by itself, you just see a Latina who's just putting her hands on her hips, standing straight, and just showcasing that she is beautiful. It doesn't look too sexualized.
I picked out this little picture of Sofia Vergara. I chose it because I think it's very empowering to see that a Latina has made it onto Forbes's list. First of all, just like to have like anyone like Latino or Latina on that list, I think is very empowering. But the fact that she's also a woman, so that she's Latina specifically, I think is like what I like most about it. Yeah, within the context of the magazine, it kind of sucks because like I was like kind of looking for like Latinas or just like any people of color in general, and so the fact that I had to try so hard, and then I finally found something, and it was like a tiny little picture in the corner, you know, like that kind of like belittles it, I think. Yeah. But the fact in itself, I think, is pretty cool.
And there you have it, folks. I was able to create a feminist, democratic, non-racist space by simply reappropriating what is in this magazine and putting it into a different context, into a context that was more personal, that was empowering to oneself. And this is what a feminist safe space is. It is a space that is open. It is a space that is inclusive. It is a space that is empowering. And it is a space that is personal.
We're going to have to switch. So
Right.
respond to Giselle while Zoe goes up. Any comments for her on her presentation or her project?
It was so cute.
I liked having it, the performative nature. You have a different style on the video. Don't you, Bethany?
I really like. I also thought it was just a great concept of having people cut it out and
Yes.
reappropriate it and make it feminist.
And your findings were real clear about how that, absolutely. You don't need much to make things work, but you do need that level of attention.
Okay.
Zoe.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Gmail.
I know your video making skills, you know much. Speaking of which, tonight is the video screening for production students. It's 6 o'clock. Who's showing? Giselle's showing, and Leah's showing. Oh yeah, a lot of you are showing on Honda.
Wait, where is it?
Tomorrow's presentation.
Are you doing tonight? I have a dance performance and they want to practice.
6 o'clock tonight is for all the production students. Tomorrow night is all the seniors. It's sort of all day long. So it's the ones who did academic papers during the day, the ones who did digital projects in the afternoon, and the screenings in the evening.
Wait, what is the team that did it?
I wrote a paper.
The conference.
It's like a critical studies, media studies class.
No, I mean, like, do that to present?
Yeah. During the day. Tomorrow. There's a schedule on.
Wait, where is this? Where is this thing? It's just like
Tonight?
Yeah.
It's at
It's in Benson.
Okay.
Okie dokie. So I want to preface my little presentation by saying two things. One, I have a very severe, even though I'm pretty outgoing, I have a pretty severe fear of speaking in public, and I feel extremely nauseous and afraid right now. So just be sensitive, please. And then also my topic and my inspiration and my motivation for this is extremely personal. So I just want to give you guys a heads up that that's kind of the nature of my presentation. So I spent my semester in Tumblr, and when I started, I was like, cool, I get to spend time in Tumblr because I love Tumblr so much. And I want to say around October, I was so tired of it. I want to get rid of my Tumblr. I don't particularly care for it anymore, but I think that might be because after the work I've done in this class, I'm realizing that I may have been using it in the wrong way. Not necessarily the wrong way, but maybe not the right way. And since I've done this project in another class, I've been asked to produce a piece of activism to kind of tie the themes of that class together. That's my Introduction to Gender and Women's Studies class, which is interesting since I'm a major and I'm graduating in a semester. So I needed to go back and do that. And I advocated for other girls in the class to spend their opportunities for activism bringing feminist spaces onto Tumblr, since I experienced them as definitely present, and they're definitely there and you can find them, but I think that there should be more of it, and I especially advocated for girls of color in my class to really put themselves out there and make a space, create those subspaces that I discovered were there. So for my X-Reality project, I decided that I really wanted to bring the theory of the class into it because I don't know how much I had personally engaged with it. So I really went back and went through the readings, and I found two that were particularly insightful for my work. The final chapter of Hello Avatar, and then chapter 13, I want to say, of Cyberspace or Cyberfeminism 2.0, which is about creating a safe space. So
I have a couple motivations, I suppose, for my creation of my safe space. There's three. First and foremost, I am a person who plans to create a career on a spiritual path. It's all about alternative medicine and healing. And I don't always feel at home at college, just because this is a place that often and almost always asks me to lead with my mind, lead like with an intellectual and academic, scholarly sort of look at things, at least in the classroom, which is where I'm graded, where like what I do really matters, I suppose, in terms of like the school setting. So I wanted to first and foremost create a safe space for myself, like make myself feel safe at college. And then I also have been feeling a little bit unsafe in myself and in my own home and my own space, because my mother is terminally ill. And when you're facing the loss of a parent, it's very hard to feel safe in the world, in any place that you inhabit or exist. So I was thinking about myself. I really was. I was thinking about what I could do to make myself feel safe, and then by extension, what I could do to make those in my community feel safe. I'm a person that likes to lead their life with their heart. So I was hoping to really bring that and that aspect of myself into this project. So I was really feeling uninspired, and I was like, I just want to feel safe. I want to do something nice for people. I want to make people feel good. What can I do? And then I logged on to Pitzer's Student Talk. And if you go to Pitzer, you know what's been going on, and you know how ridiculous it is. But for those of you who don't go to Pitzer, I will briefly fill you in. There have been Student Talk is amazing. And it basically, for those of you who go to Pomona or Scripps or whatever, it's like the equivalent of Chirps. It's just a student listserv on the email. And usually people use it for like, hey, I need a ride to LAX. Does anyone have ramen? Who wants to get together, go on this OA trip? And recently it's been like very aggressive, pointed, kind of like political debates that have then turned personally attacking towards the people that are engaging in the conversations. And it's like, well, you're a dumb this and that, and you're a stupid this and that. And like, it's gotten really aggressive. So finally, someone spoke up and they said, hey guys, relax. It's just student talk, like calm down. And then it went even more haywire. And long story short, basically Pitzer is against this one student now. And like there's stickers all over campus, like who is such and such, like who is this guy? And I really wanted to look at that whole situation with compassion. And I saw that, yes, his actions and his words were completely wrong, and he was very offensive, but I also feel that the more that he was being attacked, the more defensive he became, and when you're on the defensive, you're kind of on the offensive at the same time. So one of the things that came up in the course of that conversation was the fact that Student Talk was supposed to be a safe space. And all of these things in my life were just like about creating safe space. I really saw it in like every aspect of my life, in other classes that I'm taking, in Student Talk, and in myself. So I was like, all right, guys, I gotta do something. I gotta really work on this and make a safe space somehow. But how can I connect it to Tumblr? So what I decided to do was create this template. So I went on Photoshop, which, forgive me because I'm terrible at Photoshop, but there's no way to like just make a big thing, so I had to Photoshop this. So there's my alter ego, Merhipsy, and I made this post, and it says, just in case you forgot, and I left it blank for the template. And at the bottom, my hashtags are, because you're awesome, because today should be great, and also because I love you. And in each one, I printed out 40, and I hand wrote messages, like to everyone, anyone, to kind of bring in a sense of like safety, comfort, love, just like acceptance, all over the 5 C's. And I didn't bring an example of one because I'm hoping that you guys will just stumble upon them and be surprised and delighted by what you find. But I consulted my site-specific performance class where we just do flash mobs, and I really got a lot of good input about what they would like to see in terms of things that would make them feel safe, in terms of images, words, kind of like inspirational quotes. You'll find everything from like, you are beautiful, to a kitten in a basket. Pretty much anything that could bring a smile to your face, anything that can make you feel good and safe and happy in this space. And then I really wanted to try to connect that not just to Tumblr, because my focus was, of course, to try to create what I had seen on Tumblr in the real world. I feel like that was kind of the purpose of X Reality. So I wanted to do this kind of like posting of Tumblr things here on campus, but I wanted that to become like a relational network, like a network that could spread across the 5 Cs. So what I decided to do was tack up stacks of them. And at the very bottom I wrote, take one and reblog it in your space. So what I've invited people to do is then take one and bring it to like anywhere else that they feel they would like to kind of like bring that sentiment. And I also left some blank ones so that people could put their own kind of like messages on there. And although that, like, I'm sure this all seems very utopian, but I left some blank, even though I was a little bit hesitant about the kind of like vandalism that goes on with posters and things. But I wanted to show that like I have faith in the people that I share this community with, to use this the right way, to respect themselves and to respect the people that they live with. And that was an idea that I had really seen in the cyberfeminism chapter about, there was a quote that really stuck out to me, and it was, home should be a safe place. And unfortunately, sometimes I wish it wasn't, but this is our home. We live here, we eat here, we breathe here, we study here, we club here, we do everything here. We party. This is like the place that we exist, and it should be safe. And that was kind of my biggest motivation behind my project. There were other things in terms of like what X Reality is and does, like augmenting reality to make it a place that's where is it? Like a visual instrument that links events in the material world, also a tool to disrupt patterns that are occurring. So I wanted to disrupt the pattern of like negative thought, talk, and kind of like energy that's going on in my own life, but also like in the lives of those around me. Because I mean, when you're sad and you're depressed, you can kind of get down pretty fast. And I saw myself doing that, and I was like, nope, I'm going to disrupt the pattern in my life. And by doing that, I'm going to disrupt the pattern that I see on Student Talk, on the 5 Cs, because this is a stressful time. This is like a really icky, crappy time of the semester where everyone's like, I hate life, I hate everything. And I was like tired of hearing everyone talk like that. So I was like, guys, you know what? I'm going to put up posters and we're all going to be happy. So I did it. And I really think that, I'm really proud of this project, actually. I'm proud of myself for not being like a sad sack of potatoes. I'm proud of myself for bringing in the theory of this class, because sometimes I'm going to admit it was kind of over my head. And I feel like I really brought X Reality into my real world in a way that augmented, in a way that networked, in a way that created a support system. And I really am excited to see people use it, and I've already seen them appear in more and more places, so I'm getting really excited. And although it kind of like, it leaves my hands at this point, like it's not something that I can really track the feedback of, that's okay with me, because that's very much the nature of the internet. You can't always track what happens. Often I see people being on Tumblr like, oh my god, that person stole my picture, like, meh. You know, it happens. Like, your material gets stolen, your ideas get used. And honestly, this is an idea that I hope someone steals, and I hope someone runs off with and spreads it somewhere else, because that's kind of the whole point. I want to create a safe space within our 5C bubble and change the attitudes of those around us, and hopefully create a ripple effect that people will then bring out into their lives too. So that's my project.
Emily, please, and any responses to Zoe as we switch?
I also highly recommend this.
I was enjoying that very much, actually. Anyone want to respond to her as Emily Ann sets up?
I thought that that was a really inspired idea. I see the development from like your initial idea was of creating real life, having a Tumblr party and having people make their own Tumblrs. But I think that what you did really shows so much thought and effort, and I think it's a really just inspired idea. And I mean, I think that there's a lot of places for it to go. I think it's a great concept, and I think that the Tumblrs are a place where you feel safe. And I think that that really impacts that. I think that's really great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Emily Ann.
Okay, for my extra, I did Omegle, or Megal, I don't even know how you pronounce it, but whatever. It's online, so it doesn't matter. So for my X Reality, I wanted to take the idea of conversing with complete strangers and kind of put it into real life. So I chose to go out into a public space and start talking to random people and see how they responded. What? I know, I'll get to that. And I wanted to see how the experience compared to the conversations I had online and in what ways they differed. So I went to Starbucks in Pasadena, down the street from my house, and kind of surveyed, like sat down with my computer, like as any other person at Starbucks is kind of doing. And I surveyed this space, and I mean, it was like it was busy, you know, whatever. But the first thing I noticed is that like I started getting nervous, and I mean, on Omegle, my avatar was, I was confident, and you know, it wasn't awkward. My avatar was outgoing and like kind of like sassy and snide sometimes, and I wasn't like afraid to ask any question online. But then in reality, I found myself kind of becoming timid and shy, which is like not usually the person I am, but I mean, in this particular scenario, I was, and I like tried to be sweet. And I don't consider myself like the most approachable person because my face kind of makes it look like I'm angry all the time for some reason. So like I kind of tried to like kind of like smile and, you know, not look like me. And so basically like what I did was kind of go, well, okay. Engaging in the X reality was a challenge for me because I don't like making small talk with strangers, which kind of also goes toward the like angry face. And I find it like really uncomfortable and awkward. And so, but what's weird is that I didn't experience that like talking to people on Omegle. I was completely fine just saying, hey, what's up? Like, and asking any question about feminism, about anything. But anyway, at Starbucks, one memorable moment I had was with a young man. I was sitting at a table with 2 chairs, and he actually randomly came up to me, sat down in the chair across from me, and said hi. And so I was like, oh, hi, like, how are you, you know? And then he said good, and then he just said, you know, good, and then got up and left. And afterward, I was just kind of like, okay, like, that just, you know, that just happened. And it was, I mean, it was weird because I was, like, what I was planning on doing was making the conversations, was, like, initiating the conversations. But in this case, the man actually initiated the conversation with me, which actually ended up working for my project. But after the conversation happened, I was, like, confused for a second and kind of taken off guard. But then I realized, and I realized that on Omegle, if that had happened, I wouldn't have been off guard because that's how Omegle is structured. It's structured to be a place of conversation. So if someone says hi, you're not taken aback, which is different than in real life. That's what I experienced at least. But so in the other conversations I had, I ended up introducing myself to about a dozen people. It was a very painful experience for me. I really did not enjoy it. But what I found was that none of the conversations really got into anything deep. It didn't get past the, you know, hello, how are you conversation, which I found interesting because, you know, it might have been me and because I was so timid, it might have been the fact that I didn't really know what to say, like how to get into a deep conversation with a stranger, but like it differed on Omegle because, okay, well, I'll get to that, okay. So the differences that I came to, like, that I noticed in Omegle and in the X reality is that, like, if these conversations, especially with the one with the young man was on Omegle, I wouldn't have thought of it as a random encounter because as a platform, Omegle serves the purpose of introducing strangers to each other, and its users go to the site just for that purpose, whereas in the X reality, talking to strangers is not the primary function, which, you know, people go to Starbucks and go about their daily lives getting coffee. They don't go there to meet, in my experience, I don't go there to meet strangers. So I also think an important part of it is that, like, anonymity changes the way people interact with each other, because on Omegle, everyone is anonymous. Like, literally everyone is referred, like, the other person you're talking to is referred to as stranger on the site, and I can decide whether or not I want to reveal my identity by saying my name, sending a picture, going into video chat, but I don't have to. Whereas in the X reality, the anonymity of appearance is inherently broken, creating a completely different experience and different interactions among individuals. So the whole concept basically changes because conversations are in person and face-to-face rather than on the internet. Also, I realized that, you know, Omegle transcends physical space, and that with one click I have the ability to connect with someone across the world, whereas in my X reality I am restricted to talking to someone in the same room as me. And also I found that the sexuality of Omegle is augmented through the inherent anonymity of the space, which is something that is not present in the X reality because there is no anonymity. And so I myself did not experience any erotic sexual undertones in my conversations at Starbucks. I mean, I do think that it is possible, but in my experience in the X reality, that did not happen. But what I also found interesting was that I doubt that the people on Omegle who say, you know, ASL, I'm 27 and horny, like really say that in real life. So I kind of drew the conclusion that, you know, people save their sexual conversations to have on Omegle, where they are anonymous and can create any kind of avatar, even if it doesn't reflect the reality, and they would be different people in real life. So basically, from my experience on Omegle, it's evident that Omegle is not a feminist and anti-racist space, but the X reality is. The X reality, I didn't feel sexual pressure, wasn't offended or faced with any hatred, and I think this is because of the fact that in the X reality you're not anonymous. It is a real life experience that you have, not an experience that is the product of a cyber world, and in reality the conversations in the X reality prevent the space from becoming anti-feminist or anti-racist overtly. But yeah, those are basically the...
Okay, Chelsea, come on up. We're just like a little bit behind, and I'm a little worried about it. Let's talk to Emiliana as we change. You know, that was a really scary project that you did.
I didn't like it at all.
I'm sure you didn't like people either. Right. And I think what's interesting about your project in relationship to some of the other experiences that people produced where they had face-to-face contact was that everybody else was doing it with people that they knew. And that may be definitive for us, right? And I think that that's a hard question for us as women and as feminists, and Leo, including you in the feminist part, that, you know, women's experience in public space, the potential threat for us sexually, and the fact that we're going to be reduced to potential sexual, you know, conquest, alters our ability to function in anonymous public space, yeah. I think.
I had so many different directions that I could have gone in. I couldn't cover them all.
No.
So I kind of just tried to.
But I think that in the private space, we can control that a lot more. Many people have talked about wanting to control the terms of the interaction. And I think that that's very particular to the experience of women.
Yeah.
And to, you know, to other people.
I didn't have to go on Omegle again.
There you go.
Something you did really well was like showing that sometimes the spaces we inhabit online may not be compatible in the real world. Like, it's just too uncomfortable or too unsafe. It's like maybe the internet is safer than what you really experience in the world from certain things.
She absolutely found that. And that was important for us to remember, right? Yeah. Okay, Chelsea.
Okay, so I'm exploring feminism through Lauren Conrad, also known as LC World. So just an overview of what I've learned over the semester is that Lauren Conrad's fan page is a female-friendly space, but that does not mean that it's a feminist space. Feminist conversations are allowed and welcomed, however, they are irrelevant to the categories as you see on Lauren Conrad's website. My avatar is myself. The only difference is my love for fashion and my new fashion line. And then this is one of my first posts that I posted as myself. My ethnography, what I learned was that the members found that feminism and beauty were unrelated, And most of my subjects consider themselves a 5 out of 10 on the do you consider yourself a feminist scale, 10 being the highest. And my conclusion of my ethnography was that the website was being used as a means of self-improvement and not self-empowerment. So that leads me to my extra-reality experience. I decided to make these little charms of the female symbol. Ooh. By like bending wire and cutting wire, and they're not very friendly to your skin, but they're practical for pictures to post online. And so I put them on my friends and took pictures of them, and you can't really see because of the projector, but they're very like photoshopped and very like color exposure and contrast, which I studied a lot with the members of the website. A lot of their like profile pictures were very like what I like to call like Pinteresty or MySpacey. So I tried to do that with my experiment, and it was fun just to create something. I thought that it was practical for the demographic of my website. I think it was simple enough for them to, embrace, and it related fashion and feminism in a way that I think was useful for the environment of the website. I didn't get any responses for the necklaces and bracelets, but I figured that it was just because of the norms of the website and my amount on the website. Like, I've only been a member for 2 months and don't have many friends, but I think it's something that somebody or even I could elaborate on. And so my avatar promoted this as her like new addition to her fashion line, and it's called Express Your Feminism. That went super fast, sorry. But that was my extra-reality experience.
Okay. Are there thoughts or comments in relation
I'm displaying them.
to Chelsea's experience? I have one. I mean, I think one of the things that was really challenging about your site was what I had anticipated and what you found, which was that, and many of you were insights that were like this: female friendly, female connected, but not political. And what I really liked about your gesture here is your idea about it being simple and iconic.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not going to hit people over the head. We're not ready to hear messages like that and simply not work, right?
Yeah.
It speaks in the vernacular of the site, so it's about fashion and self-improvement, and yet somehow begins to hold the potential for harder conversations. So I guess the next question for you would be, and you said this, so the norms of the site are that people are really going to have those conversations there. How would you start to imagine fashion-inspired, beauty-inspired, sort of connected to Giselle's project, female-centered conversation that opens the door for slightly harder conversations about politics, about identity, about environment, about, and so that would be like the next little gesture that you would need to make in your site without leaving it, right?
Right. I talked a lot about that in my paper, that like, I thought this was just simple enough for people to embrace it and wear it, potentially wear it, and without it screaming feminism in a way that is in a bad context as we know it is as today. So I thought that was, especially since most of the people on the website were very willing to take my survey and questionnaire, but didn't consider themselves feminists. So it was a way for them to understand feminism, yet not like be pushed around by it.
So one more comment, and then, or two perhaps, and then Danielle, you can go and set up. Cindy?
Oh, it was just like, this is reminding me kind of something that recently happened with Victoria's Secret.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot what the group was called. Oh, yeah, right. It was Pink Love's Consent. It's really nice. But they created a website that looks like a new campaign for Victoria's Secret, and it uses prayer pink, and it's like Pink Love's Consent. And like in the underwear line, it's like.
And they're all like modeled by like luscious women of color too. It's a stick figure.
So let me see this. The other thing is that, so one of the projects that I worked on for several years at the Pacific Standard Time shows equipment refers to hardware, which made very much sense in the 70s context. And so it's interesting to think about this in today's context, and the much more sort of gentle, less provocative, less aggressive gesture that you've made. And it would be really interesting. You can look it up online. There's tons of stuff where you can see the picture of the one that they made. And they were giving them out at the Pacific Standard Time show. And so the copy didn't know you were speaking to it, but it's a really important object from the feminist art movement of the 1970s. So, okay, Daniela?
Okay, so for my project along the semester, I was a part of the Experience Project, which you guys already know about. I was interested in thinking about how the actual purpose of the Experience Project could be like brought into life and actually made something valuable. So I based my event on like the purpose of there being this creating this community that's built around like an experience or something that you all share and can, you know, like discuss and share like personal stories. And so on the Experience Project, I found that despite it being this like space for you to do that, it can be dangerous and it can be not safe, especially on the Feminist, I'm a Feminist page. So I was trying to think about a way that I could create this space in real life and make it a safe space for feminists. And so I decided to have like a show and tell event at the Women's Union at Pomona. And okay, so the way I structured it is I have friends that work at the Women's Union, so I used the space, and just having it in that space already was like, it's a safe space, like a designated safe space that fights gender stereotypes. That's a picture from the Woo. And I invited a group of like close friends to have dinner there, and bring something of like value to them that represents, you know, like some sort of like feminist value or meaning to them. So then I asked them to share their objects or whatever it is that they brought, and kind of like have a discussion about how this affects their like everyday lives. And I recorded it, but I kind of just like used the recording for like my own purposes in like my paper. But I'll talk about like some of the stuff that they like brought and what they shared. And so some of the things that they brought was a pair of like red like platform glitter heels, a bike. Well, they didn't actually bring a bike, but I have a picture of the bike. One of my friends is an artist and like does embroidery, and a necklace. So I can show you guys some of this stuff. So this is my friend that does art, and that's his embroidery. It says extra cunty. And this is my friend Gabby and her bike. These are, I couldn't actually get he didn't send me a picture of his heels, so I found one online, but this is what they look like. And this is my friend's necklace. So I guess I'll share some of what they said. Gabby kind of talked about how she found this like old bike that used to be like her uncle's in the like 70s or something like that in her garage, and was like, I'm gonna take this bike and I'm gonna use it in college. And she talked about how this bike was something that was like really not made for her and like her gender, because, you know, it's like, she said I don't know what it's called, but like the middle part of the bike is very high and it's like not really made for a woman. And so she feels that her riding this bike is like taking this thing that's like not made for her and making it work for her. And like she says that sometimes it's like a struggle because she has to ride this bike in a skirt, and it's not made for someone to ride a bike, to ride this bike in wearing a skirt. And so that's something that she shared. And my friend Maddie brought these heels. He identifies as being male-bodied but femme. So so for him, it's like wearing these heels is kind of like a daily reminder of how hard it is to like be femme and being a woman. And so the general gist of the discussion was like them sharing these really personal stories about, you know, their personal like views on feminism and their own and how it comes out in their everyday lives. And so I thought the whole discussion was very interesting and like how it was doing what the Experience Project was trying to do. But there are some very key factors that like change the dynamics of the space that allows for it. So the fact that the space itself was a designated safe space for feminists and, you know, women, kind of sets it up to be like a place where people can share private thoughts and personal experiences without fear of being attacked, which is something that doesn't happen on the Experience Project. So like having that safe space and having like the privacy and like knowing the people that you're around is something that allows for these like personal experiences to be shared and be made productive rather than it being, you know, like a post that then like gets turned into a different like argument and, you know, people start attacking each other like it happens on the Experience Project. So the building of this like space is very much relies on the fact that, you know, like the people that you're there with, there's like a foundational respect that everyone has for each other, and its purpose is to like build community around these like feminist like principles and ideals. And so I found that allowed for the like sharing of these experiences or personal experiences that doesn't really happen on the Experience Project. I thought something that like happened that was interesting, I think some of the other people experience this too, is like the difficulty of actually getting people to come to the event, which is something that I thought was like a benefit to having an online experience as opposed to doing it in real space, because it's easier to get people to respond via like the internet. But I was able to get like 4 people to come to my event, and I found that it was, with the people that I did do it with, it was really productive and it was exactly what I wanted it to be. And with that comes the idea that it was like a very like small scale thing, but I think that can be like a good thing and a bad thing, because the like smallness of the community that I was trying to create and like the safe space worked to like provide like trust and build a relationship of trust that allowed people to share these things. And yeah, that's pretty much what I found.
Okay, staying on schedule. Hannah, go. Somebody respond to Daniela as we shift. I'm going to take a couple of pictures. Any thoughts? I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry, I was trying to.
This is kind of awkward with 2 computers on the corner. Like here? Oh, good call. Ooh, too loud. Oh, sorry.
I think that, Daniela, your presentation speaks really well to Leanne's. Because, you know, I think that the component missing from yours was that it was random and in the structure. And a lot of her findings are about the fact that
try to put on this.
Space has to have a structure. The questions have to have a structure to produce the kinds of intimacy that
Like right here?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
But I think that what we learned is that we can't.
Cool, thank you.
Beautiful kids.
Thank you. My children are biologically half siblings. They have the same father. So you can see it if you look across race. Noticing those.
I just want to say that somebody contacted me via Facebook, and they were like, I just saw you on the live stream, and they like responded to my piece. They saw it through Hannah's Facebook, and then they were like, I just want you to know that you don't know me, but you're so nice and like charming, and I was like, thanks. So I don't know when they tuned in, but I thought that was really funny.
So that means we had an audience.
Yeah, but I also don't know how they knew my yeah, it was. Was it on the presentation? No, no.
Well, it's a small college.
Yeah.
Chalk it up to that. If someone has access to the Ustream or that we are using, you can probably see if they're currently logged on.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Okay, Hannah, last but not least.
Okay, so I'm really bad at giving presentations and I'm nervous and was editing a movie with Gina Lamb until 4 in the morning last night, so forgive me for this being a little bit off. But yeah, so I didn't do a presentation on my space because I switched spaces, so I did a presentation on my old space, so I have like a little overview of my space. Just in case anyone didn't read my ethnography, but for my X-Reality project, I went to my high school, and senior year of high school, I took a gender studies class, and I really didn't know anything about feminism or gender at all, and I kind of just like didn't know what other class to take, and after being in that class, it like totally changed my views on everything in the world, and I learned so much, and like it changed what I'm studying in college, and it was really cool to be able to go back in there and kind of like come full circle with like my like interests in feminism and gender studies. And so basically I went in and talked to the class about my project, presented what it was, and I don't know, it was like really special and really a good discussion. But yeah, so I'm just gonna give a quick overview of my space. My space is the Tumblr Thinspiration community. That's the definition of Thinspiration. It's basically inspiration that comes in the form of like pictures and videos and like written things. It's like inspiration to lose weight. And pro-Anna is pro-anorexia and pro-Mia is pro-bulimia, and all of those communities exist on Tumblr. Yeah, I've been on Tumblr for like the past 2 to 3 years, and I have like since the first like month I was on Tumblr, I started to find Thinspiration blogs. They're all over Tumblr, and a lot of them are also self-harm blogs. So they'll post pictures of cuts on their arms, or like the picture I have there, cuts on her legs. But yeah, it's like just really, it's primarily made up of women. I have like 100 followers and 1 is male. And it's just kind of weird because it's a supportive community, and like the people who are like occupying the community are concerned with the well-being of each other, and they all want to help each other. But when you actually look at their goals, it's like really detrimental to physical and mental health because it's like furthering like a mental illness. Last year, Pinterest and Tumblr tried to remove all of their Thinspiration content from their servers, and some of them did get deleted, but honestly, like you could type in Thinspiration and find 100 blogs in 5 minutes. These are just some observations that I made. about the community. If I posted something about feminism, everyone would kind of, like, people would comment on it, but like there wouldn't be like a big discussion really. This was my correspondence with someone about like a question I asked about feminism. I also wanted to determine if the inspiration was a gendered space, and since eating disorders are generally gendered, it makes sense that it's like a female, like a strong female space. There are not very many queer women who I found on Tumblr that like are inspiration bloggers, but there are a lot of queer body acceptance bloggers, which I'll get to later. And the whole community is really heteronormative because most of the like people who post are like, oh, I want to be skinny for boys. Like, I don't know, most of the reasons are boys are clothes to lose weight. There are also not very many women of color who I've encountered in the inspiration community, and I only have one male follower. So basically, I just kind of was trying to like see with the criteria of a safe space, if Tumblr, or if the inspiration community on Tumblr could be considered a safe space, and it does adhere to some of them. Like, it's a community of women who are helping each other, but to an end that's dangerous. There's a lot of judgment that goes on. It's a closed-minded space. There's some fat shaming that goes on, which is upsetting. But basically, like, I have been, like, the end of my project was finding body-positive spaces on the internet that kind of just, they're just so exciting and accepting of everything and everyone, and it's kind of like, I felt like it was like rehabilitation after looking at so much inspiration. And then this is a body acceptance blogger who I talked to for my ethnography. Yeah, these are some of the things I asked her. I don't know if you can like, read that up there. And these are some more of her answers. Okay, so let me get to my. Okay, so as I said, I went to my high school, which is Crossroads, it's in Santa Monica, and I went into the gender studies class, and we had a discussion. We were supposed to I brought in like a bunch of cutouts and little booklets for them to make body positive zines, but we kind of ran out of time and didn't get to do it. But we did have a discussion, which was really great, and I have like a little audio clip from that, and just the format kind of got messed up with this when I emailed it. But here are some of the reactions that I got.
It actually depends
I eat you're angry, I don't eat you're angry.
I can only think of 2 girls.
Another freshman class is just like that.
Oh god.
And then like most of the text I just reblogged because I didn't really want to write any of my own.
Is that someone their actual body?
Yeah.
Wait, go down.
So someone posted that like
and then someone posted on here, like the girl who posted it wrote like if only or
like did people really think that that is
and that like picture is really popular on Tumblr. I've seen it like so many times.
I don't know, there's just like a lot of people screaming, she's gonna die, she's so skinny, oh my god. And these are some, oh, okay, sorry. This is just more reactions to it. Okay, and then this is, I mean, that's basically it. like the Tumblr Inspiration community lives under the veil of a supportive community. It's tight-knit. They urge each other to ask for advice and counsel. They want to support you in your journey to become thin. But it's really problematic because the community is very demanding of a certain lifestyle, and it encourages unhealthy habits that reinforce an unhealthy body image to a very vulnerable audience of mostly young teenage girls. And it's exclusive, so it's not a safe space, and the community will be as accepting and supporting as you'd like it to be. But if you're not already in or actively trying to fit their strict standards of beauty, you're kind of just rejected.
Okay, so we have a minute or two for class ends. Does anyone want to reflect upon doing our last class here in this space? Yeah, Zoe.
I just briefly wanted to say that she contacted me again and said she should hear us talking about it. That would be nice if we said hi.
Hi.
Hey, Sophie. Hi, Sophie.
Sophie, thank you for watching. So how did it feel, just as students, but then how did it feel in relationship to our thinking about X-reality? Because we just had an insanely X-reality-like experience culminating in somebody that we don't know watching.
In someone else's art version. I think like the space is very powerful aspect of it. Being in someone else's.
Being in somebody else's art. Totally agree. So with all of our ideas about building spaces and having spaces and thinking through what spaces are conducive to have what kind of experiences we got with pleasure of being in a built environment that's really beautiful.
Yeah, I like the setup. I like everyone. I know it's kind of asleep, but I really love that we're all on the floor because it kind of, or at least for me and for like the interviews that I've done, it really sets like the ground level and equalizes you when you can meet people and like eye contact.
Yes.
And the fact there's like something about the background that makes it so fluid, like the fact that the background is in motion but at stop at the same time really for me presents this kind of metaphor for what X-reality is, the way it like flows into a conception of reality and then incorporates that.
I appreciate that, yeah.
I think it also perfectly exemplifies that this class, as the classes in our relationship to each other, and not just in that classroom, has created a safe space, because even though we've moved locations, I mean, this is the perfect example. We're all really comfortable, like physically comfortable, and I feel like it is a pretty comfortable environment to go up there and talk about something personal. And I felt more confident talking on a podium with like a projector on me than I have ever really felt before. And I really attribute that to the fact that I feel really comfortable with every person in the classroom.
I was very impressed by all of you, the confidence that you had, and how really intelligent, well-crafted, well thought through all of your presentations were. The way that you all spoke with that mastery of your subjects was really impressive to each other in a community that was open and listening.
And it shows how this environment is conducive to something that's more beneficial to all of us. The fact that we feel comfortable enough to get up there and talk, like how you're saying. I mean, it shows that that's a better environment, and you'll get more out of that environment and produce more than an environment that scares you or is intimidating. I mean, well, a lot of academic environments are kind of intimidating.
That's feminist pedagogy.
Yeah.
I mean, we think a lot, feminists have thought for a long time about learning environments, and that different learning environments produce different outcomes for our students. Hannah?
Oh, I was just going to say, it's like just so many weird levels of connection I feel like going on right now that we're kind of like we were talking to Sophie, like just in the room. Like, it's just like I didn't notice where the camera was until probably 10 minutes ago. And so it's just really weird. I feel like they're just eyes and ears connecting us with so many different facets. Like I know I took a picture and put it on Instagram, and like I wrote about it on my Facebook and my Tumblr. And so like I just feel like it's so connected on so many different like levels. It's just kind of crazy.
It's wonderful, and it's an incredible opportunity, and it wouldn't have happened, and we never took the class into X-reality. We always held the class in a private space.
Except for the political activity. Yes,
when we did the political activity, but then we were we lost this, well,